Hey folks, I want to show you an amplifier I just built. This is a Premier Twin 8 clone. It has two 8-inch speakers. It is modeled after the original Premier Twin 8s from 1959 to 1965. So if you bought one of those amplifiers back then, this is the way it would look like. This is an original. It has the widow's peak. It's a very nice looking amplifier. Great color scheme. The gold Tolex, they don't make it anymore, so you really won't find this type of Tolex. Brown contact paper you should be able to find. So I modeled my amplifier after this, and as you can see, mine has a widow's peak as well. It's a little bit more exaggerated than the original amplifier, but you know, it uses the beige Tolex and the brown contact paper. And the contact paper is obviously, it's pretty cheap stuff. It rips and tears. You can easily replace it, but it looks pretty nice. And it's got gold and beige grill cloth. So before I get into these circuit build of my amplifier, I just want to take you through a couple of the schematics that I relied upon. So there are many different schematics for the Premier Twin 8, and they have different power tubes and rectifier tubes. So let me show you this version here. This is a 1965. This looks like the latest version of the Premier Twin 8. As you can see, it has diode rectification and 6L6 power tubes. It has a tremolo circuit and a foot switch, a speed control for tremolo, volume and tone. Now, this is the circuit that I basically relied upon heavily, and this is the 1964 version. It has a 5Y3 rectifier and a 7591 power tube. Again, has a foot switch, a speed control, 3 inputs, and a volume and tone knob. So I basically built my amplifier after this. I also heavily relied on a schematic that was provided by Jim Whiteside from deepblueharp.com. It's a blog. It has a lot of information on this particular amplifier. If you're going to build a Premier Twin 8, I would suggest that you go to his site. He's very generous, very gracious, has provided lots of information on the Premier Twin 8, and he provides you with various handouts, the different circuits, bill of materials, other information that's very useful. So I would suggest that you go to his site. And this is the schematic that Jim was gracious enough to provide to me. And this is what I heavily relied on. So he made just a couple changes from the original circuit. Again, this uses a 5Y3 rectifier and a 7591 power tube. As you can see, he has only one input as opposed to 3. Jim is a harp player. I think he also plays guitar too, but he built this for a blues harp. So he has one input here. And the other change that he made, he took out the foot switch, which I think is a good idea. I built my amplifier originally with a foot switch. And, you know, unless you're using the foot switch and playing guitar, you don't really need it. And he put in an intensity control for tremolo in addition to the speed. And I added the intensity control in place of the foot switch jack, which was a really good improvement because it gives you more control over the tremolo and the intensity. So I would suggest that you put in an intensity control with the speed control. I think it makes a difference. So this is the schematic here. I would suggest that you use this one here. Jim also made a couple changes relative to eliminating or reducing parasitic oscillation. There's some resistors that I'll show you when I show you my circuit where those resistors are, but one goes for the power tube and the other for the preamp, where he has some resistors there to eliminate parasitic oscillation. And parasitic oscillation, they're high frequency sounds that basically that you don't hear, that can take out your power tubes and your transformers. So I thought those were really good improvements. They don't have any impact whatsoever on the tone circuit. Everything else is original. And if you build it as it is original, you're going to get that sound from 1959 to somewhere to 1965. The other two major components, obviously, are the transformers. The power transformer, he's using, I think, a Hammond. And I think he initially got a Hammond output transformer, but he had switched out the Hammond output transformer to one that he had special ordered and built for him based upon his examinations of original Premier Twin 8 amplifiers. He basically, put those output transformers on a scope and tested them and got the right measurements and had them specially built. So that output transformer that he had specially made has only 3 laminations, and they were basically cheap output transformers back in the day that did not have as high fidelity as the current transformers do, but they had that nice soft distortion that most harmonica players and I think a lot of blues guitar players look for. And so that's what I have in my amplifier as well, and that's what he has in his. And let me show you my amplifier circuit. So I built my amplifier with true point-to-point wiring. I like to build them that way. That's the way the original Premier amplifiers were built. The later versions did have a turret board. They kind of laid in a large board here, and they would have the components neatly placed. And those were easier and faster to build and easier to make changes to because it was just laid out on a board, and you see a lot more wires than you do in my amplifier. So when you look at my amplifier, which is true point-to-point, it doesn't have as many wires. And I'll show you the heater wires are right here. They're tucked away down at the bottom, and they're twisted. This is the only place that I could put them. I could not mount them in a vertical fashion, as you see in other amplifiers, which is a good idea to keep them high to avoid any interference. But these, this worked out pretty well, and I have no interference, no AC hum or anything like that, by the way I have mine configured right here. So on my amplifier, as you can see, I put a turret strip here, so where the power comes in, and this is the ground wire here that goes directly to ground. Then you got the neutral and the hot. The ground wire is the longest of the wires as a safety feature in case this wire here becomes dislodged. The green ground wire would be the last to be pulled out of the amplifier. So the transformer that I used, the power transformer, was from a Voice of Music reel-to-reel recorder that I had repurposed. And the voltages on that were pretty high, higher than the normal Premier amplifiers. Basically, it was at 425 with a center tap. So the voltages were high, but it's a very stout power transformer. So, and it was used in an amplifier that had a 5Y3 and a 6V6. So I found it very useful, as well as with a 12AX7. So it had all the other voltages needed, and it's underneath the amplifier. It'd be hard to show you here, but it's a 1959 transformer. It's stout. It's excellent. like I said, the voltages were a little bit high, and so I had to change out this initial resistor on the power rail. So I have a multi-cap here, and the initial, the resistor, like I said, was changed out to a 2K resistor to drop the voltages. And I forgot what was the voltage that I dropped it to. I think it was around 370, somewhere around there, and which provided the voltage here to this red wire, which goes directly to the output transformer wire, which is this right here, right to the output transformer. The multi-cap that I have is rated at 525 volts, and it has 4 sections. I'm only using 3. One section was 40. The first node is 20 coming off the rectifier. The second node is 40. And then the third node is 20. This here is a 5K resistor. And as you can see, these 2 red wires, all the B plus wires I put in red. And these red wires, one goes directly to the power tube, the grid, and the other red wire goes to the plates of both 12AX7s right here. So I tied them in together, and they go through 100K resistors right to the plates of each of the 12AX7s. As you can see, I use some pretty good quality components. I have Sprague orange drops and Allen Bradley carbon comp resistors. I also have some F&T capacitors here, and some Mallory capacitors here, and a Mallory resistor here. So I use pretty good quality stuff. And these 2 metal film resistors are 2 of the changes that Jim made on his schematic, and this is to cut back on parasitic oscillation. And these are the type of improvements I think that you should make, because it makes a difference, but not to the tone. It doesn't affect the tone, but it affects the longevity of your power tube and your transformer, and eliminates issues in the future. So here, this 68K resistors here to the 2 inputs that I have. I have a high and a low input, and then you got the volume control here, the tone control, the speed of the tremolo circuit, and the intensity control. As you can see, I used a brass plate. You don't have to use a brass plate, but I did, only because I just wanted to solder the ground wires directly to the brass plate. And grounding is very important on an amplifier like this, or any amplifier for that reason. As you can see, this green wire here comes off of the pots and the jacks that are all grounded to the same brass plate, go into that green wire, which goes to a grounding point back here. You can, with two green wires are attached. The other green wire coming off the preamp is the cathode, and that goes directly to that same point. So all the preamps and the jacks and the pots are connected to the same ground point. I think that eliminates hum. I had that green wire here a little bit longer, and I just recently cut back the wire, made it shorter. You want a short run to ground. You don't want lengthy runs to ground. You want a short run to cut back on any hum. So, and that made a difference, because that other wire, it was this long, it was located here, and when I would tap on it, you could hear the preamp get amplified, just that little tapping. So your grounding points are very important. The second grounding point that I have is on the multi-cap. As you can see, the green wire is the ground wire, and that goes directly to a lug right from the can capacitor. So that would be a second grounding point. And then the third grounding point is where the voltage comes into the amplifier, and that's the green wire from the 3-wire power cord. So the 3 basic grounding points I have. Another feature that I added here was a variable resistor, and this helps you dial in the correct bias for the power tube. And I think this is an important feature. I mean, you could just switch this out, but you have to do many tests, and you got to keep soldering and desoldering until you get the right value. This here takes the guesswork out because it gives you a range. And I think this is 500 ohms, so 0 to 500 ohms. And I don't know what I have it set to, but it took a lot of trial and error just to get it to this point right here. And this here is the cathode bypass cap. And the other addition that I made here is the 1 ohm resistor, which this becomes the ground, the bias point to test the bias level. So that's another good feature. There's a cathode bypass cap here. I think that's for the tremolo circuit. I was going to add a bypass cap on the preamp, and I actually did just to see what it would sound like, and it didn't sound that good. I think this amplifier has plenty of bass, and I'm using 0.022 coupling caps. So, and that was plenty, plenty of bass. And normally I think when you play harmonica, you might want to switch those out to 0.1, but I wouldn't do it in this particular amplifier because you get plenty of bass and you have a tone control pot, so there's really no need to do that. This is the tremolo circuit right here, and these capacitors coming off of that. Black wire goes to the speed, and this orange wire goes to the intensity control. So you get the 7591 power tube here. This is a new, this is a new issue tube from Tungsol, Russian-made tube. Obviously the prices have gone up on this. A multi-cap here. This is the 5Y3. This is a new old stock. I forgot what brand, but it's a United States made. And this here, again, I have two 12AX7s under this. And these are also, well, this one looks like it's an Electro Harmonics. So that one's a new issue. But I think this one here, I know this is a new old stock. I forgot the brand of it. So I have two 8-inch speakers here. They're Weber speakers. I think these are some of the best speakers around. They're smooth cones, and they're wired in series. So they are both basically 4 ohms each. Okay, they're 15 watts, 4 ohms each, wired in series, which makes 8 ohms. So you need an 8 ohm output transformer. The output transformer, I think, was rated at 15 watts. These speakers are rated at 15 watts. I think I have this bias so that it is, it's a little, maybe it's running at about 80% of max. And I think it's putting out somewhere around, I think 12 to 13 watts, based upon what I had measured. But I'll make another video so you can hear what it sounds like. So thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.